just published a book this fall, which has been really exciting, called More. And More has been sort of, it's my philosophy. It's what I use in my practice, and it's what I use in my life that I lead. And it does tie in with this, because I said one of the things is mistakes, or when things don't go so smooth, there are opportunities, right? So this is going to be a really great story to tell when I get home. And I'll say, oh yeah, and then I managed to do it. I managed to pull it together, and it'll be a triumph, is what it'll be. So I want to talk a bit about what More is and what the philosophy, and so let me get to it. So More is a methodology for living in the moment, right? And it's not quite that simple, but it is about being able to respond to the moment that you're in. And no matter what's in front of you, like my night I'm having right now, you run through the keywords to find out how you can respond, right? And how you can get the path to exceptional living. So it provides a solid framework to move forward in life. So if I was, like right now, I'm going to go through the 4 different words of More stands for movement, opportunity, reality, and exception. So the whole thing, M, because I'm going to use this as an example, would be what needs to move. In this moment, what needed to move? Well, we needed to start this presentation because we couldn't keep doing what we were doing. Exactly, right? It had to move. What was the opportunity? The opportunity is to pull on the resources that I have and my resiliency and be able to adapt. So there's room for growth. The reality is that thing's not working, right? There's nothing I can do about it. It's the reality that's happening. So I have to change gears and shift. And the exception is based on sort of how to do something differently and what's the exceptional outcome that you can have at the end of something. And really fun is they're going to have this great experience on tape, too.
Let's hope so.
What if that has not been working and this has been working? That would have made me a lot happier. So how do we do that? Well, we look for the circumstances or challenges that need to move. We look at the opportunities that are right in front of us, and we observe the reality of the situation. And we commit to a path where the first 3 factors can lead to something exceptional. So movement, opportunity, reality, and exception, for those that can't see it. It's in my computer. And so I've got an icon that's got the movement, the reality, and the exception, and the opportunity, and in the middle, it converges to the point that's like right now. So, So movement. So let's talk about movement in general. Over that. Is that life is always moving. It's always moving. And life is, I see it like when things get stagnant. It's like water. As long as water's moving and it's going from place to place, it's vital and it brings life and excitement and energy and it nourishes us. But we all know that in a pool of water, if it's just sitting there stagnantly, nothing's happening except bad things are growing in it. So we need to look at what needs to move. So when I have a client, when I have a situation that comes to me as a therapist, the first thing I'm doing is assessing what needs to move here. Where's the stuck spot? What are the things that are not, that need to be addressed and pulled out? And usually for anybody that's gone to counseling or is a counselor, they'll experience there's something that was stuck. Is this working? Will you hear me?
No, of course it's not.
So this isn't working? Okay, I am like, I must have like a, really bad techno vibe or something today. I'm just like managing to,
take
stop
it
everything
off.
except the film, the camera.
Well, don't jinx it now,
Right?
okay?
So I'm kind of wanting to jinx that, right? But, so, anyways, without movement, life is stagnant. If this isn't working, there's no point in me.
Yeah, take it off.
Yeah. Shall I hold your computer up and just kind of scan it around
No.
the room so people can notice?
And it's low on batteries too, so I can't even quite have to have it plugged in. But anyways, so feeling stuck is always frustrated, and that's often things that bring clients, you know, is a feeling of stuckness and frustration, or not being happy, or being unsettled in some way. So movement is the ability to take action to move things forward. So that's the M of the MORE philosophy. Now the whole MORE philosophy, these are the pieces of it, but where it really started for me is it's been a lifelong journey. I remember being a young girl, and I'm from Saskatchewan, and walking along those prairie roads and thinking about more, thinking about there's more out there, you know, and wanting more. And I remember going to high school and kind of thinking, well, there's got to be more than this. Right? I remember getting to university and kind of going, I want to learn more. I want more. And when I say more, I don't mean more as in like stuff. I don't mean more stuff. I think we have a society with way too much stuff, but I've kind of played with the words because I want to get people's attention. Because this is a philosophy that is not about getting more stuff. It's about a philosophy that's about digging into the moments that you have and that you're experiencing. So, like I said, the more stuff, when we look around us, I mean, we just came off of Christmas, right? And so many families, so many things, it's more and more and more stuff, right? This is more about those expansive moments that I'm talking about, those ones where you're going, I want more. I want to understand more. I want to experience my life more. I want to dig into something. And we can't fill that up with stuff. So although our society is sending us a very different message about more, I'm trying to like transfer that over to getting people to think about something different when they hear that word. So M for movement. Now the next piece is opportunity. And I believe that opportunities, life is absolutely filled with opportunities. This is an opportunity tonight, but they're all opportunities. And they're not really good or bad. Sometimes it's just the choices that you make, right? It's just, opportunity is always in front of us. I see it as like windows that come and go, and you can't go through every single window of opportunity. You have to make your choices as to which ones you're going to do. I also believe very strongly, and this was one of the big pieces that informed me when I was writing this and pushed me to write it. When my clients would come in to see me, I would see it always as an opportunity. And I work in a lot of very complex situations. I've worked with a lot of divorces or very high conflict, very challenging situations, and I always perceive them as an opportunity. Now, that doesn't just mean, yay, this is an opportunity for something great. It does mean that, but it also means it's an opportunity for things to get much worse, too. So it's the choice that we each have individually, as myself in my life, the choices I made, and also in the life of my clients, right? What is the thing that's going to break it open, so to say? And so when people come in crisis, I was really studying crisis and seeing crisis, and that is where change occurs. You know, when things are status quo, people aren't, things don't change. It's comfortable. We grow when we're uncomfortable. We grow when things get difficult, and that's the opportunity for growth. Tonight, I'm going to leave here, honestly, having, you know, overcome one of my fears, right? Which is that, you know, I'm not a technological person, but I always have that fear it's not going to work or something's going to go wrong, and then there'll be growth in that for me. You know, is it going to be the best presentation I do? I don't know. I kind of like things to run in pretty structured, you know, but it'll be a growth period for me, no doubt. So that's an opportunity. You guys coming here tonight, it's an opportunity. Everybody's tired and busy and stuff like that, but this is your time. What are you going to get out of it? What's the opportunity? What's the little piece that you're going to take home tonight? Right? So I think we really need to look at that, and as therapists and as a therapist in the field, I feel so blessed that people bring me their opportunities and that I can assist them in moving towards something. So I always say, you know, carpe diem, right? Seize the day. This is the moment, right here, right now. And so in the MORE philosophy, when we're converging in that middle of that really pretty icon I have in there, is that's the moment. Seize it, take it. I know we can't take all of them, but decide which ones you're going to take. Take something, you know, and assess what's going on. So the reality. In my practice, I think that one of the things I'm strongest with is the reality checks. And I think in my own life, I've been pretty good, and even times a little bit brutal with myself in the sense of saying, okay, what do you really need to deal with here? I don't really, it's part of my personality, is I like things to be reality-based. I'm not idealistic, or what's the word I want to look for? Idealistic, I'm optimistic, right? I think if people build things in ideals, they're often disappointed. My experience has been the most disappointed people I have met in my life are the most idealistic people. You set it here, and then reality comes, and you go there, right? So I am all about what is really going on. So that's a little hard to look at sometimes. Sometimes we don't want to see what's really going on. We want to avoid it, and that's when a lot of the trouble begins. So if we can look at a situation, look at ourselves, our lives, whatever's in front of us, what's really going on here, rather than just build up this idealistic. I have what I call coined realistic optimism, right? You know, because I would think, I would work with all these families and I'd always see hope for them, but I wasn't like hope as in some sort of we're going to magically resolve this. It was always something that we could work towards. And in my own life, I always felt it kind of, that we could achieve a positive outcome from something. But I felt like it had to be based in reality, that the only way to really get there. So I started to think, if I'm not a pessimist, I'm not a, idealist, what am I? I'm a realistic optimist. So I think that is the R for more, is looking at things in a way that, what is the real story here? What's the information I need? Because what happens to people when they don't pay attention to reality, they don't get the information, and they don't make appropriate decisions. They're not informed decisions. And sometimes reality is very far away from what we want it to be. And that's the thing, is we have to learn. But the thing is, if you don't get yourself based in reality, you're not truly participating. You're not really here. So if you're off idealistically thinking of this, or gee, I really wish this would get better, or this, you're not actually responding to your life. You're kind of wasting your time, right? I kind of think as we get, maybe a little bit more mature, we get a little bit that we will still waste some time, but let's waste less time. That's my thing, is let's waste less time. Yes?
Can I ask a question now, or do you want questions?
You know what? Let's have questions now, because I was going to do that, and then, you know what? But I think I would be happier to have your questions now, right?
Well, first I just want to say, I'm so moved with you being able to respond to this, because I know this is going to happen to me one day. So
Right.
I'm just really watching and learning for
Right, so you remember it.
Yes. So, but I wanted to know, I really like your philosophy and your approach so far, but I'm a counselor, from a counselor standpoint, are you transparent with your clients in front of you? Do you kind of orientate them and say, so this is my philosophy, do you tell them about more, or do you just do it as you work with them?
I think I used to just do it, because, and I was very successful at what I've done. I've been very blessed and fortunate to have a very active practice, and I started to really examine my practice and kind of go, and that was part of writing the book, is what's working, right? What's working here? And then as I began to define it, I started to speak it to my clients. So when I'm with my clients, they hear opportunity, they hear reality check, they hear those words, right? They hear that, they hear exceptional, right? They hear it, we talk about it. And I do talk to them about my philosophy. I do talk to them about it, and I am very strong on giving them the reality checks, and most of them at the end will actually be quite grateful, because I think I've actually saved them a lot of time, right? And I actually have people that are, I'm fortunate enough, a lot of people come back and say, you did save that time, right? Some don't want to hear it, so they're not ready. But that's a great question. So yes, I weave it now very strongly in to the work that I do. And thank you for those encouraging remarks. Right, so reality is the information that we need. So please, I think if you have questions, put up your hands, and that way I can dig a little deeper into the topics, right, and maybe get a little bit more information. I want to talk about exception, which is the E and more. And it was interesting, when I started to write the book, the first thing I was doing was, I started to think, well, it's actually when I was developing some other pieces at my office, and I was thinking, I always thought there would be more. And it really made me think of I always felt there could be more, right? Could be something exceptional in every relationship, or I always felt I could have an exceptional moment, right? So I started to really look into it, and it was the thing that help me expand kind of the whole philosophy and the 4 different arms of the philosophy. But the exception to me is, the reality is very easy for me to talk about. The exception is a little bit harder because it is kind of the magical part, right? It's that exceptional piece that comes out of all of those things coming together, and it creates it. So one time I was out for dinner with a friend, and she's actually a therapist as well, and we were talking away, and it was just around the time that I was making a big change in the business, and I was purchasing the business, doing all sorts of things, and I was talking about all this vision that I had, and she looked at me, and she was just looking, she said, you know, Alyson, because people have always called me a perfectionist, and I was like, I'm not a perfectionist, and I knew I wasn't a perfectionist, just like I knew I wasn't an idealist, or nor was I pessimistic. I just had to find the right word to say what it was. I knew I wasn't a perfectionist. I knew I had high standards. And she said, you know, Alyson, she said, you are not a perfectionist, you're right. And she said, it's just that you want everything exceptional. And I was like, yes, I am an exceptionalist. And that is what I am, an exceptionalist, right? And I think, I mean, it might not be for everybody. Not everybody necessarily wants that. I want that, though. I want to have exceptional experiences. I want to have an exceptional life. This is the only life that I am aware that I have. I don't understand why I would want to waste my time. Like, I'm not the perfect package I would have loved to have had in my life. I'm not. This is the package I have. That's the reality. But I'm going to make it an exceptional experience. Right? And so my life, I have been consciously trying to make an exceptional experience, and it isn't perfectionism, because perfectionism is when you're reaching into the back of the cupboard, and you can't quite reach something, and you're reaching and reaching and reaching, and you still can't grasp it. And all that leads to is frustration. We feel inadequate when we can't get it. And perfectionism is all about inadequacy. Right? You're never good enough. Whereas exceptionalism, it's like you get to have all those wonderful feelings of doing a job really well, and you get to enjoy them, right? Perfectionists can do a job really well, and they don't enjoy it. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to enjoy this. If I've worked hard and I've done a good job here, I'm going to get a good feeling from it. I'm not going to, now that doesn't mean I'm not going to learn. You know, I'm going to try to learn today. I'm going to try to think. I'm going to go and talk to people. What could have gone wrong there? Like, what was that? What, you know, because I don't understand technology so like, I'm going to try to learn from it, but it's not going to, like, block me, right? It's going to actually be the vehicle for something exceptional, and this is exceptional. You know, the thing is, I really think we need to dare to be different. You know, I frankly find the norm a little bit boring, right? Sometimes it's comfortable, but sometimes it's a bit boring. And I work a lot with youth. I've been so blessed to have so many young people cross my path. And I have been, in my own way, encouraging them to be exceptional in the work that I've been doing. I haven't even knowing I was doing that, and I was doing that, right? And I see all these exceptional young people. And I don't want them all to be just, you know, all the same. That's boring. There's nothing interesting in that. I want to encourage their exceptionalism, that part that's different, that dares to be different. And that's why when I launched the book, I also launched a scholarship for youth on the North Shore that they're going to need to present to me. It'll be, the first one will be this spring, how, and it's going to be a financial reward, but it's going to be based on them showing and demonstrating something exceptional. It could be that they're planning an exceptional piece of their education. It could be that they're going to do some sort of relief work somewhere. They just have to show me the principles of more and how they're applying it to their life and how they then can contribute, right? Because when we're being different and unique in ourselves, it's when we're at our best, I think, right? It's when we have the most to contribute. So I'm trying to find ways to help youth understand this, because there's so much pressure to be the same. You know, and here I'm saying, be different. Be different. In fact, that's what's going to make your life outstanding. And then I go through them to a lot of their heroes or people that have really succeeded in life. And I say, look at how different that person was. You know, look at all the different things they did, right? To hopefully inspire in them some sort of passion to kind of bring forth their own unique self, right? So take the risk to be true to yourself And it's that Shakespeare saying, to thine own self be true, that no man can be false, right? And I find in the work that I do as a therapist as well, whether they're 5 years old, you know, or they're, you know, 85 years old, I'm trying to assist people being true to themselves. And I actually really believe in that saying. I mean, Shakespeare was a wise guy. To thine own self be true, that to no man can be false, right? Because it's true. When you are in your truth, when you are being authentic, you don't have to be defensive. You don't have to hide anything. You don't have to be apologetic. And I don't mean as in truth, as in selfish, just what I want. I mean as in what is true to you. What is your value? What's here at the core? And you don't go wrong when you're being true to yourself. So helping people understand that and applying it yourself. You know, the great thing about being in this profession for me is it's not that we have all the answers. In fact, I think we have to be very, very careful and cautious that we don't undermine people's intuition by saying we're the ones with all the answers, right? We are guides. That's the way I see us. You know, it's like a path. It's like going one of those forest walks, right? And you get that map. And I see, you know, more than likely they're going to make it through without you. But if you have a guide, then you know what? You're going to have a lot more interesting journey, and you can relax a little bit more. And I still remember, I write about it in the book, but when I was young, and I was in Australia, and I was doing this great little hike, and it was like in the jungle. I mean, I was quite young, I was like 24. I was like, okay, jungle walk, awesome. And me and my friends, we arrive, and we, you know, actually went to the pub. Okay, and we had a beer. And that was not the smartest thing to do before a jungle walk, right? Because, you know, we were young, and we thought we were pretty fit and strong and stuff, and so off we go. We see the little pointers in the jungle, and so we go walking through the jungle. Well, little did we know that this was actually a highly difficult path. We did no research at all. We just started walking. Well, yes, we were lost in the jungle for 10 hours. No water. Didn't even bring water. We were, shall we say, slightly hysterical. By the time we got out of the jungle, thank God, we frightened the town people, but we did get out. I thought, you know what? We should have done a little research, and I should have got a guide. And one of the things I think about counseling is that's what we can be. Life's a jungle, and there's going to be terrifying moments for people where they feel completely lost, right? Where they just feel like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing here. But as therapists, we can save people a lot of time, and they can have a lot more fun journey if we're actually there guiding them. Because that jungle that I was lost in was beautiful. It was a beautiful jungle. But I was not appreciating the joy of the jungle because I just was terrified and I wanted to get out of there. And that's what happens with life sometimes. We're not like appreciating and just enjoying the moment because we're panicked. There's a lot of panicked people. We know anxiety is the #1 mental health issue now, right? We've got a lot of panic, right? But if you have a good guide, they can actually assist you along the path. So I always think, to me, that's a good description of counseling. It's not that there's anything wrong. Maybe you weren't that well researched. And you know what? They're probably going to make it out themselves anyways, without us. But they can have a better journey, more well-informed, if they have a good guide beside you. So I've learned that. I've learned a guide is worth it. Right? So now when I go traveling, I'm like, yes, I will. Hire a guide. Right? So, let's see. So, more about that. So, with movement, back to movement, one of the things I say is, like, I always see, like, emotions, right? First of all, emotions. Emotion. E-motion. To move. That's what it means. That's what emotions mean. Right? It's Latin for to move. There's such wisdom in words. If we study the etymology of a word, it tells us exactly what we need to do. Right? So emotions are meant to move. They are absolutely fabulous. There's no bad or good emotions. Anger is a fine thing. There's reasons to feel angry. It just has to move. It's when it's stuck, it becomes rage, it becomes damaging. But anger itself is absolutely necessary, and it's a positive. It can be a real positive for people. It helps them draw boundaries. It helps them do all sorts of good things. So to move is what we want to do. So back to that M in the more philosophy. What do you need to move? What, if you're working with clients, do they need to move? right? Because emotions are to move. So if the garden hose, the water is going through the garden hose, there is no problem as long as the water is going through. It's when it gets cricked up, right? That's when the pressure starts to build, right? So you want to keep things flowing. So, like I said, if there's an obstruction, the pressure builds, right? But don't leave the hose unattended either. You know? So, you know, if you're watering the lawn, you don't leave it on endlessly. You manage it. You manage the hose, right? I'm going to have that on for 2 hours. Then things are nourished properly and everything moves. But if you walk away and leave the hose on, we know that that's a problem, right? So if pressure and emotions are built like this, that's a problem. If it's just flowing endlessly, or where, you know, so we're completely emotionally driven, that's a problem, right? So we want to find that management of the emotions. So, like I said, when it bursts, it can make a really big mess. So allow yourself to feel what you feel and limit feeling sorry for yourself. You know, back to that reality check thing, I say, how do people, I say, okay, you are allowed to feel sorry for yourself. I said, I'm suggesting maybe 10 to 15 minutes today. That's what I'll say to my clients. I'll say, you know, more than that might be a waste of your time, right? But feel it and check in what you're actually feeling. What are you feeling? Let's talk about the physical feeling of feeling sad, feeling, you know, at the short end of something, feeling even victimized, right? But are you wanting to spend all your time there? Because to me, that's a waste of your time, right? In the end, it's your time. You can choose to do it, but I think it's wise to feel what you feel, but limit it too. That's what I mean about the hose just being left unattended. And then it just wastes all our resources. That wastes resources, right? So, back to O. When opportunity knocks, you know, the thing about opportunities, they generally have a risk in them, right? They often make us scared. You know, I have never felt that I was ever ready for an opportunity that presented itself. When I really look at it, it's not like I kind of went, okay, I've got all my T's crossed, the I's dotted, I'm now ready for this opportunity. It doesn't come like that. I don't know if it comes like that for you, but it doesn't come like that for me. When I start to look at the big changes in my life and the big opportunities that happened, they kind of became before I was ready for them. And I had to kind of go, oh my God, I gotta get on board with this, or I gotta, you know, or it's gonna go, right? So I believe opportunity, you can't truly prepare yourself for it. You can build your strengths and your responsiveness, but you can't truly prepare yourself for opportunity, right? You just gotta be able to respond to it. And it generally comes way before you're ready. So no risk, no reward, no movement. Opportunity, change is uncomfortable. We just have to accept that, right? I believe we need to be creative forces in our own lives by choosing which windows we're going to take. That's the part. I think life's going to provide them, but which ones are we going to choose? That goes back to what I was talking about with knowledge and having the reality checks and the information, because then you can make informed choices with the opportunities. Not every opportunity will be a success, right? It will fail at times. So there's no assurance that when we say, okay, I'm going to go for it, I'm going to take this chance, I've got it ready to go, I'm going to go, you know, we will fall flat on our face at times. If we're not falling, we're not trying, right? When my son was learning to ski, right, and he was terrified, it was, I'm scared of falling, right? And it was like, if you're not falling, honey, you're not trying. And in this family, we try. We try. And you know what? You're going to fall. You are going to fall, right? And you're going to be able to get back up again. I swear to you, you will be able to get back up again. It will happen. It might take a little work, and it might not be very elegant, but it will happen, right? So that's the thing. We're going to fall. We're going to fail, but we can get back up again, right? So, the reality checks. To achieve an exceptional life, you need to live in this real world, you know? What good is an exceptional life in your head? Look, I mean, a nice little fantasy, but really? I mean, no, there's no good there, because guess what? It contributes nothing to anybody else. Your fantasy contributes nothing to anybody else. It's just for you. And that's okay. That's your own little treat. Have your fantasy. I still have my rock star fantasies, right? You know, I'm still up on stage singing, you know? But, okay, I'm doing this instead. With the reality check. Nobody's going to hire me on as a, you know, for the bands, right? But that's okay, because this contributes something to people, and that doesn't. There's no contribution in that. It's good for me. It's kind of fun to play around with. But I believe that we're here to contribute, to give back. So, like I said, it's healthy to have fantasies and use your imagination, but there needs to be an action that emerges to create something truly exceptional. I mean, really, do you think that that's an exceptional fantasy, right? It's no. The real world, when we see the real outcome of our action, that's exceptional. That feels good. So to achieve those goals, we have to check in with the reality checks, what's really going on. And to understand ourselves and others, we need to pay attention. If you're paying attention, you get the information. If you're in a relationship with anybody, which most of us are, with somebody, you know, friends, family, whatever, I mean, well, we're not islands that live apart, then we get information from what's going on with other people if we're paying attention. It's paying attention. So, back to dare to be different, you know. What does exceptional actually mean? You know, when I started to really think about this need for exception, I was like, okay, what does it really mean? I know that feeling when my friend said, you like everything exceptional, and I do, and that felt right. But it's what it is in the dictionary is forming an exception, rare, you know, better than average, superior, which some people have trouble with, but I don't. Deviating from the norm, being a little bit different from the norm. And when I say don't have trouble with superior, I mean aim high, be your best. You know, it doesn't actually diminish anybody else. It doesn't diminish anybody. You being true to yourself, you shining, actually really truly gives permission for other people to take some risks and opportunities. You don't have to diminish yourself, so it's okay. It's okay to aim for that high point, and to do something really well is a good feeling. And maybe it'll open a door for somebody else too. You can still contribute through that, through doing your best, right? So, exceptional life is one in which we're aiming higher than the average, and we're moving away from the ordinary into the extraordinary. So, in allowing, more always happens. That's me, that's my little quote, right? It's in the book. So, in the book, when I talked about that, I talked about, you know, that path, like being in the jungle, right? And how much help it would have to have had a guide, or at the very least, a map. You know, because yes, I hate to admit it, we went in without even a map. I didn't mention that right away, right? Not only was it supposed to be a guided walk, we didn't even take a map. And we know here in the North Shore how costly that can be when people, you know, don't attend to that properly. I'm very thankful I got out of that and learned something. But, so I started to think when I was writing this book and developing and defining the philosophy, I was like, okay, well, what is the map? You know, what are those arrows? When you're walking around and the arrow is pointing in a direction, telling you the direction to go. Looking at life, what really are the arrows that are going to guide us? So I've got the encompassing philosophy, but what's the step-by-step practicality of how to do this? You know, how to live an exceptional life. So then I thought, I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to map it out, right? And I like to call it Alyson's ridiculously simple, incredibly practical, and extremely attainable, right? How-to manual. Because it is. It's not rocket science. A lot of it is common sense. And I kind of think it's good for us to get back to some common sense. So I'm not going to go over all the steps with you tonight, but I'm going to dig into about 5 of them. To give you a little taste of it, to see what the map is, and see how that rings for you. The book we outlined, I put out the 16 steps, and I kind of go into each of them. But tonight I'm going to start with the first 5 steps. Right. So, number 1, my first step to exceptional living is turn it up to 11. Turn it up to 11. And where did that come from? That came from me being a music fan, as I said, my rock star fantasies. Yeah.
Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap! Yes! It was one of my favorite things, was I remember watching this, and there's this, like, you know, they're this kind of has-been rock group, and, you know, and they're coming back to revive, and this guy's being interviewed, and on his amp, he's got an 11. And the interviewer says, you know, why does it go to 11 when 10's the loudest? And Nigel, I think was his character, just looks at him and goes, but it goes to 11, you know? And I just love that. I just like, yeah, you know what? Life goes to 11, right? Don't let somebody else tell you it's a 10 when for you it's an 11, right? So it's okay to turn it up a notch. Now that doesn't mean that I think an exceptional life is like, you know, equaling, you know, we all have to do like, you know, extreme sports and skydiving out of things, and that's not what I mean about turning it up to 11, right? I mean about finding the things that really excite you and that you can be passionate about. That's what I mean about turning it up to 11. What I mean by that as well is come out of the norm. Don't just take the perception that somebody else has. Like, develop your own perception, right? So find your own 11. And so, you know, push the boundaries past just simple comforts and take those risks, right? Your own internal experience rather than the external motivation. You know, the 11 is inside. It's the thing that's inside you, right? So you can find your own 11, you know, and so bring your best self to the game. Get ready to use your courage, you know, get ready to get in there, dig in, and turn it up to 11. So that's the first step. Start looking about, okay, where can I have those kind of heightened experiences that for me are really exciting? Where do I turn it up to 11? We don't have to have 11 all the time. I don't want it at 11 all the time. When I go home tonight, I will not want an 11. I'm thinking more about a 1. You know, really quiet time, turn it all down. You know, if I'm lucky the kids are in bed, then it can be like a 1 or 2, right? But it's being in control of your own volume, really, right? That's what I kind of mean by turning it up to 11. It's more like volume control. The next one, and I've talked about this already some, but I think it's really important, is the giving up perfectionism, you know, and becoming an exceptionalist, you know. It's a great shift. It's a great shift when you think about it, you know, the move away from perfectionism to exceptionalism. Because the road to exceptionalism, the thing with exceptionalism is, okay, perfectionism is all, the mistakes become the enemy, right? They're the enemy. And it's the complete opposite with exceptionalism. The mistakes are the yellow brick road. They are the way to the exceptional life. Our biggest problem with mistakes goes back to the reality check, is we lie to ourselves, or we become defensive. So rather than really dig in and say, where did I mess up here? What really happened? You know, we either kind of go into feeling sorry for ourselves, which is, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes, but we don't really go, what can I learn? What was it? Where did I mess up? Especially in interpersonal relationships, we get very defensive with each other. And one thing, I think the biggest cost of defensiveness is that you don't learn. Right? I was at a conflict conference. Well, it wasn't called a conflict conference, but it was all about conflict. And when we had this thing about, you know, defensiveness and non-defensive communication and things like that. And somebody said, what is the biggest cost? And I said, I think it is that you don't learn, and I really do. I still can't find the bigger cost. I think that's the biggest one. So to be an exceptionalist, you gotta let go, right? Let go of that and embrace the mistakes. Look at the things that didn't go well, and that is hard to do. Like, it sounds easy, but it's the hardest thing to do. We go back into that kind of more immature place of wanting to defend ourselves or blame somebody else. You can always find blame for somebody else, always. And I'm not saying that I don't blame. I go through my own head, you know, thing too. But in the end, I can do nothing about that. I can't do anything about them, but I can look at myself and I can go, okay, what is it you need to learn from this, Alyson? You know, did you need to be here earlier to prepare? Did you need to, like, what is it, right? Because then, the next time I do a presentation like this and my technology doesn't work, I will have a better idea of how to handle and manage myself. You know, and I think that's anything, right? One of the things I try to, you know, because I've worked a lot with divorce and separation, it's one of the major pieces in my practice, is that, you know, I really try to help people understand, rather than just blame the other person or just feel sorry for themselves. I'm trying to get them to go, okay, you know, what went on for you inside? Where did you compromise yourself? And that's not blaming them, it's just what happened. and I've heard many times the idea that people had this ideal vision of what it was going to be, and then the disappointment. And they kept on with something that wasn't good for them because they were still hoping for that, right? I've heard that story so many times, right? So my approach is, okay, learn from it. So, you know, to me, perfectionism is actually the arch enemy, right? And I am out to defeat it. I am like, you know, the champion of exceptionalism, right? And, you know, perfectionism is, I'm like, you know, I'm super helpful to defeat it because I just think it is so destructive. Working with young people, oh my gosh, right? The cost of perfectionism in youth. Two things happen. Either their anxiety is out of the roof, or they've given up and won't come out of their parents' basement. This is what we're dealing with. For people that work with young people, we're seeing anxiety at absolutely phenomenal levels, and also that lack of motivation, the failure to launch, the person that's given up, you know? And sometimes they are the smartest people, but they're both perfectionists, right? And one is still trying, they're still running, right? And the other one says, I'm not running, I'm done. That is perfectionism. That is the cost of perfectionism. And perfectionism is costing our youth so much. So, you know, for me, that is one of my passions, is how I get in with young people and help them transform that and see that there is another path. There is another path. You can achieve it, do well, be true to yourself, and not have to go to either of these places, right? Where you are either immobilized by giving up or immobilized by such massive anxiety. Because what happens to those people then is they don't contribute in the same way, right? In the end, we're all in this together. And if we can find ways to bring our best and contribute, and of course, working with youth, one of the things I have seen is that when you get people contributing, especially young people, right? Young people that feel that there's, you know, they've given up, it's not a good place. But when you get people contributing and being a part of something, sometimes it's like getting down to the HCA and helping them out, like they start to lighten, they start to lift again. It's beautiful to see them transform that. So when you're talking about, do I talk to my clients about, you know, I talk to the youth a lot about my philosophy, almost more than the adults sometimes. And I talk to them about that part of it, right? And they like it. They're kind of going, yeah, that's good, you know? They're still trying it on, right? So no reality in perfectionism. You know, to allow our potential to flourish, we need to develop realistic goals without opting out. An exceptional life is achievable and real. And we need to accept the life we have and know how to use the power of choice as our volume control. Be aware of our strengths and vulnerabilities. So, okay, this is a controversial one. I'm gonna have a glass of water. So, so my next one is, yes, it's called this, get your ass in the right spot. I can't believe it said out loud. Therapists just don't use that language. And when I was writing the book, I went back to that chapter, kept going, because it's in the chapter, it's chapter 3 title. And I was like, oh, you know, this is not going to cause waves, people aren't going to like this. And I went back and I was like, okay, what can I put in that just doesn't sound quite like that? And then I was like, no, be true to your own self, you can't go wrong. Right? Like, people don't necessarily have to like it. It's not necessarily a politically correct way to talk. But it's what I really meant. So I thought, okay, you know what, Alyson? Own it and go with it. Right? So I was rereading this chapter recently. Actually, it was when I was doing up the PowerPoint. I was kind of rereading my chapters and pulling things out, and I was like, man, I did say, you know, that a lot. You know, I don't think you're supposed to use that word. They don't teach you that in grad school. But like I said, there's no way to say it delicately. You know, we are approaching the best things in life ass backwards.